Imagine a world where humans aren't the only ones walking the earth with intelligence and fire. A time when dense forests, icy plains, and wide open valleys were home to more than one kind of human. About 40,000 years ago, two very distinct species were in a fierce competition for survival. Our Cro-Magnon ancestors, the early modern humans, and the Neanderthals. For more than 300,000 years, Neanderthals had lived and thrived across Europe and parts of Asia, mastering their environment with strength and resilience. And then suddenly, almost as if overnight on the evolutionary timeline, they vanished. What happened? How did our ancestors, Cro-Magnons, manage to outlast the Neanderthals, their stockier and more physically powerful rivals? It's a question that has puzzled anthropologists for decades. And while we may never know the complete story, we have uncovered enough clues to paint a fascinating picture. The answer isn't as simple as brute force or a single cataclysmic event. It's a complex mix of environmental changes, cultural differences, and biology that ultimately tipped the scales in favor of the Cro-Magnons. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. To understand how this rivalry played out, we need to explore both the strengths and weaknesses of Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons. Neanderthals were built like tanks, shorter, stockier, and with broader rib cages. Their physical design was perfect for the cold Ice Age environment they inhabited. Imagine standing next to a Neanderthal, about 5 feet 5 inches tall, but with biceps as thick as your thigh. They were incredibly strong, with dense bones that allowed them to endure harsh conditions and survive injuries that might have killed other species. Their brains were roughly the same size as ours, but certain areas of their brains were more developed, especially those responsible for visual processing and body control. This means Neanderthals were highly adapted to their environment. They were fantastic hunters, wielding large spears to take down huge game like mammoths and woolly rhinos. Their diets were primarily meat-based, and they would have needed a lot of it to fuel their massive bodies. But survival wasn't just about brute strength. Neanderthals were no dull brutes. They were likely capable of some degree of speech, used tools, wore animal skins for warmth, and even buried their dead. They lived in small, close-knit groups, which would have given them a strong sense of community. So why didn't they make it? If Neanderthals were such successful survivors, why did they disappear? To answer that, we need to take a closer look at the new species arriving on their turf. Cro-Magnons. Cro-Magnon is the term we use for the early modern humans who began moving into Europe around 45,000 years ago. Physically, they were taller and leaner than Neanderthals, with longer limbs and lighter builds. While Neanderthals were built for strength, Cro-Magnons were built for endurance, which gave them a different edge when it came to hunting. They could chase animals over long distances, tire them out, and then go in for the kill. Cro-Magnons also had more versatile tools, bows, arrows, and complex spears that allowed them to hunt more efficiently and at a safer distance from their prey. But their real advantage wasn't just in their tools, it was in their brains. Cro-Magnons had more developed frontal lobes, the part of the brain responsible for problem-solving, planning, and abstract thought. This gave them a cognitive edge over Neanderthals. They were better at innovating, which helped them adapt to changing environments. They created art, cave paintings that tell stories of their lives, their hunts, and perhaps even their beliefs. They made jewelry, built more advanced shelters, and had larger social groups. This wasn't just survival. This was the beginning of culture. One of the most striking differences between Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons was how they responded to the environment. Neanderthals were specialists. They thrived in the cold, but when the climate began to change, they struggled to adapt. Cro-Magnons, on the other hand, were generalists. They were able to survive in a wider range of climates, and this flexibility may have played a significant role in their success. For a time, Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons shared the same landscapes, likely competing for the same resources. Archaeological evidence suggests they might have even interacted, and there's genetic proof that some Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons interbred. About 1 to 2% of the DNA of modern non-African humans comes from Neanderthals, which tells us that the two species didn't entirely avoid one another. But did they live in harmony, or was there a struggle for dominance? There are two main theories about what happened when these two species met. One suggests that Neanderthals were gradually outcompeted by Cro-Magnons. As the climate fluctuated and food sources became more unpredictable, the more adaptable Cro-Magnons were able to secure resources that Neanderthals couldn't. Cro-Magnons were also more social, forming larger groups that allowed them to share information and skills. The other theory is more direct: conflict. Some researchers believe that competition for resources led to violent encounters between the two species. With their superior tools and larger numbers, Cro-Magnons may have driven Neanderthals out of key territories or simply wiped them out in direct confrontations. But warfare alone isn't enough to explain the extinction of an entire species. The reality is likely more complicated. Cro-Magnons may have outcompeted Neanderthals over thousands of years, with environmental factors playing a significant role. The Ice Age wasn't a stable period. Climate conditions were constantly shifting, and about 40,000 years ago, Europe began experiencing a series of severe cold spells. While Neanderthals were well adapted to cold climates, these periods of extreme cold and rapid warming created a fluctuating environment that made life difficult for everyone. As the forests they hunted in began to disappear, so did their food sources. The large animals Neanderthals relied on, mammoths, giant deer, and woolly rhinos, began to decline. Cro-Magnons, with their more varied diet and advanced tools, could adapt to these changes more easily. Neanderthals were specialists who had evolved to survive in a particular set of conditions. When those conditions changed, they didn't have the same flexibility that Cro-Magnons did. While Neanderthals stuck to their traditional ways of hunting large game, Cro-Magnons were experimenting with fishing, gathering plants, and hunting smaller, faster animals. Cro-Magnons also used their advanced communication and social skills to coordinate group efforts, enabling them to survive when food was scarce. By around 30,000 years ago, Neanderthals were disappearing from most of Europe. Their numbers had dwindled, and they were likely confined to small, isolated pockets. The last known Neanderthals lived in southern Spain and Gibraltar, clinging to the edge of the continent in a final struggle for survival. Meanwhile, Cro-Magnons were thriving, expanding their reach and population. It's tempting to think of this as the moment when Cro-Magnons won and Neanderthals lost. But in reality, there was no single moment of victory. The process was slow, and the reasons for Neanderthals' extinction are complex. They didn't just disappear because Cro-Magnons killed them off, or because they couldn't hunt anymore. They were victims of a changing world. Climate shifts, loss of food sources, and the rise of a more adaptable competitor all contributed to their decline. Even though Neanderthals are gone, they haven't completely vanished from the story of human evolution. Thanks to modern genetic research, we know that most people outside of Africa carry some Neanderthal DNA. This suggests that while Neanderthals as a distinct species disappeared, they left a small but permanent mark on the gene pool of modern humans. In a way, Neanderthals didn't just lose a battle for survival, they merged into the human story, and their legacy is still with us today, not just in our genes, but in the very fact that we're here, exploring their story and trying to understand how we came to be the dominant species on Earth. The extinction of Neanderthals teaches us something profound about what it means to be human. It wasn't just about physical strength, though Cro-Magnons weren't weak by any means. It wasn't just about intelligence, though Cro-Magnons had a cognitive advantage. It was adaptability, the ability to change, innovate, and cooperate that set Cro-Magnons apart. They survived by being able to live in different environments, hunt different animals, and work together in ways that Neanderthals couldn't match. This adaptability remains one of humanity's greatest strengths today. Whether we're facing climate change, pandemics, or technological upheaval, our ability to innovate and work together is what will ensure our survival in an ever-changing world. In the end, the story of Cro-Magnons and Neanderthals isn't just a tale of survival. It's a story about what makes us human. It's a reminder that, even in our distant past, cooperation, creativity, and resilience were the traits that allowed us to thrive. And they're the traits that will carry us forward into the future.